Look, I've titled my talk Iliri, the Creative Laboratory and the New Land Art because I'm really interested to let everyone know some of the new initiatives that Iliri has taken on. Now, I'll give you a little bit of background on Iliri for those of you who don't know too much about it. Iliri stands for the Imaging Land International Research Institute, and it was the initiative of Dr. Idris Murphy, Ian Grant and myself. Unfortunately, Dr. Murphy and Ian Grant are both retired now, so it's left me. Anyway, it's operating out of the School of Art at this college, College of Fine Arts, and it aims to open a dialogue across a wide spectrum of contemporary approaches to imaging the land, from Indigenous, non-Indigenous, national, local and international perspectives, and it aims to promote new ways of perceiving land in the 21st century. With access to the Australian outback through the university's Fowlers Gap Research Station, Iliri has a particular focus on the desert environment, but not solely, but certainly this is where our residencies have been occurring. Fowlers Gap, as you can see circled on the map, is located 112 kilometres north of Broken Hill in what's called the corner country of New South Wales far west. It is a 38,000 hectare property and is comprised of desert, semi-arid, grassland and scrubland. One of the advantages of the Fowlers Gap Research Station is its proximity to some of the wonderful national parks of the region. Over the years, we've taken artists and students to Mutawinji National Park, and this is some of the rock art at Mutawinji National Park, Kinchka National Park, and also Mungo National Park, all of which are important Aboriginal sites. More recently, we took a group to Sturt National Park, where one may wander through the red sandhills of the Strzelecki Desert. It's on the edge of the Strzelecki Desert with that wonderful orange sand. And in fact, this is an image of our group. This is a couple of years ago now when we went to Sturt National Park. So you can see the vastness of the area. And here I've just got a map to show you the proximity of all those national parks to Fowlers Gap. Mind you, they are fairly vast distances. It normally takes us a bit over an hour to get from Fowlers Gap to Mutawinji National Park, if that gives you some idea. Now, the Iliri vision incorporates three functions of education, research and the provision of artist residencies. In terms of education, we take annual field trips, which students can take as an elective to the Fowlers Gap Arid Zone Research Station, and we also showcase regular exhibitions of land-based art. This is the quarters at Fowlers Gap where most of our students stay. This is another building. There's quite a lot of buildings at Fowlers Gap, so accommodation is not really a problem. Our postgraduate students often get their own house, and this is actually one of my postgraduate students who's just received her degree at the postgraduate house. And of course, what they tend at the moment, because we don't have enough studios, we're trying to build them, they tend to turn the verandas and everything around them into studio space, and a lot of people collect the wonderful things that you can find out there. It's extraordinary. Also, this is Badger Bates, who's an Indigenous artist, and also at that time he was working for the Parks and Wildlife because he is involved with Mutawinji National Park because his people have been given back that land. And this is an example of one of the exhibitions. The second thing that we do is residencies for local and international artists. Iliri's established a residential arts centre at Fowlers Gap, and as a member of Res Artis, which stands for, which is an international association of artist residencies, and we're a member of that, Iliri attracts national and international artists to reside and work at this unique centre on the edge of the Australian desert, and has an ongoing program of constructing purpose-built artists live-in studios at Fowlers Gap. We just had a Japanese artist staying there, but I think after a while he got a bit freaked out by the isolation, ended up going and spending most of the time with the students on the main, because this is about 15 minutes drive from the main area. And that's actually the Billabong that you probably saw the trees from the Ochre House, and then if you walk up the little hill, you have this view. So it's, in fact, at certain times of the day, it really feels like you can see the curvature of the earth. It's extraordinary. This is another studio that we've just finished. They're live-in studios, and this is Idris Murphy there with David Croft. That's the inside. This is finished now. People have actually stayed there. And that's the view from that studio, which is closer to the main complex. Now, the third area that we are working with is research, obviously. As a research initiative, Iliri attracts honours, Master of Fine Arts and PhD students, most of who are being supervised by the academic staff of Iliri. The majority of these students have experienced the semi-arid environment of Fowlers Gap through attendance at one of the annual field trips. More recently, Iliri has begun to explore interdisciplinary research into ecological issues through collaborations between artists, architects, scientists from a cross-cultural perspective. This initiative began in 2006 when Iliri was invited to attend a conference in the Netherlands titled the Zhang Project. The aim of this week-long conference was to explore the rural area of Devenen, which is sinking. So they actually have the exact opposite problem to us. They've got too much water, we don't have enough water, and it's also being encroached upon by the surrounding cities. The uniqueness of this particular project lay in its inclusion of artists to generate fresh insights into the development and future demands on Holland's Green Heart. So I was there working with farmers, town planners. It was a very interesting group of people. Iliri decided to reciprocate the invitation and was successful in receiving funding through the contestable funding scheme of UNSW, which aims to promote and assist through collaboration between UNSW and international sister universities. Similar to the Zhang project, the Iliri Symposium aimed to foster educational and cultural outcomes and was conceived as an exchange between the Dutch artists and architects looking at problems of water management, land ownership and issues of sustainability in the arid zone, and how cultural perceptions of land contribute to present land use. In all, 35 people travelled to Fowlers Gap, including 7 Dutch artists and architects, as well as the Netherlands Consul General, Margarita Bott and Edmund Rutenberg, and she's in the centre there. Oh, I better not move that thing, I think it's a bit sensitive. Australian participants included the author, Professor Paul Carter from Melbourne University, the scientist and founder of social ecology degree at UWS, Professor Stuart Hill and Judy Pinn, award-winning architect in sustainable architecture, Peter Stutchbury, artist Janet Lawrence, Ardeen Ian Howard, Lucien Fontenaz, Idris Murphy, Terry O'Donnell, myself, Associate Professor Peter Hill, and sound artist Jane Ullman. We also, of course, had the scientist David Croft, who's the director of Fowlers Gap, and we had Indigenous elders, Mark Sutton, who's the chairman of the Mutawinji Land Council, and Badger Bates, whose image I showed you a little earlier, who's an artist and elder of the Barkindji Nation. We also had a lot of, quite a few postgraduate students. So these are just a couple of images from the symposium. There's David Croft showing some of our Dutch friends the land, the problems with this particular land at Fowlers Gap. And we also took them to a sacred site called Uriawi, which we're quite fortunate to access because it's not generally open to the general public. As a result of the symposium, Iliri has instigated or been involved in a number of initiatives. The Dutch are presently holding an exhibition in Utrecht titled Parallel Universe, Re-Cognising the Land, to which Janet Lawrence, Rochelle Haley and myself have contributed some works. So this is the invitation to that exhibition. It's happening right now. Iliri is, and I'll just show you. These are, they just sent me yesterday a couple of images from the exhibition where you've got these opposing images of the parallel universe between Holland and Australia. It looks like quite an interesting exhibition. Iliri is presently working on a travelling exhibition itself, which will tour regional Australia and includes artists at the forefront of environmental art in Australia. Most importantly, and for the purpose of this lecture, Iliri has now established what we're calling a creative laboratory, which basically is a large area of land at Fowlers Gap, where artists, architects, scientists, pretty much anyone concerned with issues of the environment and the land in these times of climate change, where they can all collaborate on projects that explore new ways of perceiving and interacting with land in the arid zone. Like many contemporary artists who have been categorised under the umbrella of the new land art, the aim of the creative laboratory is to search for new paradigms that help to alter public perception about the meaning and significance of the land and challenge conventional thinking. A question that is being asked by artists worldwide is whether the aesthetic can contribute to the debate. Artists often work across disciplines, revealing new insights and asking questions along the way. There are models operating in Europe and the USA that are exploring ways to address the problem through a hybrid, often through a hybrid art-science lens. The international journal, Leonardo, for example, has set up a branch in France that is devoted to art and climate change, and I actually have an article coming out in February in that journal. In the United Kingdom, research has shown that interdisciplinary teams led by the arts dealing with social regeneration initiatives are growing in number. Many of these are focused on the environment, including diversification of rural land use, with research showing a direct benefit to local economies as a result of the creative input. This model, I believe, has yet to be thoroughly explored in Australia. Until now, there has been no framework, where these shifts in cultural meaning around the land have been made visible and accessible to the broader community. So what is this new land art? This is an image, obviously taken out of a book, of Spiral Jetty by Robert Smithson, which is a famous example of land art from the 1960s. Smithson wrote in 1972, "The artist should begin to develop an art education based on relationships to specific sites. How we see things and places is not a secondary concern, but primary." In recent times, the land art of the 1960s has been re-examined and now tends to be considered as insensitive to the actual environments they were placed. The new land art of the 21st century explores ways to address problems of the so-called progress creates, often by looking at them through a hybrid art-science lens. Sometimes barely recognisable as art, it also does not function within the ordinary parameters of science and land use. Instead, it suggests a new paradigm that eschews and end products and established formats in favour of experimentation. It challenges conventional thinking. This is an image from a group in the United States that call themselves the Centre for Land Use Interpretation, and it was established by an artist called Matthew Coolidge, who's based in Los Angeles. And the Centre for Land Use Interpretation engages in a number of initiatives that explore and question use of land across the United States. Their activities include an ongoing exhibition program, tours of particular sites, and in fact that image I showed you a little earlier of Smithson, that was one of the CLUI tours to the Smithson land art. A database on unusual and exemplary land use across the states. It has a residency program, and it also engages in publications and interpretive projects in the field that are designed to draw meaning from land use sites with the aim of expanding methodology into new forms. The new land art also includes artists who work to restore sites in collaboration with experts. So this is an example of an artist called Mel Chin, who collaborates with an agronomist from the US Department of Agriculture, Dr. Rufus Cheney. Together they've explored the idea that land contaminated by toxic metal might be cleansed by sowing hyper-accumulating plants which absorb metal from the soil. Not only would this purify the land, the metals would then be harvested and recycled, defraying the cost of restoration. Called Revival Field, it is shown to be feasible as at a toxic waste site outside Minneapolis in Minnesota. Chin has noted that the process of carving away pollution is akin to the sculpture chiselling away at marble to bring out the hidden form within.
Louise, are those guys wearing those suits because the plants are so toxic?
I assume so, yeah. The Land Foundation I actually visited the Land Foundation in January. It's a fascinating place. And anyway, this is a Land Foundation, was initiated in 1998 near the village of Sanpatong in northern Thailand, Chiang Mai. Since then, artists, local farmers and students from the university have cultivated rice and experimented with biogas and photovoltaics and construction. So the idea here is that it's owned by 2 artists, and they've basically given the land to the art world. Artists apply to go there. They don't receive any funding, they have to bring their own funding, but the land is available for them to build interesting structures and to experiment with new ways of providing energy, and so they've experimented with the biogas. This is one of the buildings that's been built by these French artists called the Battery House, and it's powered by buffalo. And this is there's some buffalo, and that orange thing in the middle of the pond is actually where they store the buffalo dung, from the buffalo dung they create their energy through the system of biogas. So these systems were developed by artists, of course, calling upon systems that aren't really that new, but looking at alternatives to burning coal, or even attaching the land to the central system, electrical system. Other initiatives that I've become interested in focus on community involvement. So these photos by Niles Norman document the adventure playgrounds around Tokyo, Sapporo and their neighbouring cities. The adventure playground movement started in the 1970s when local residents, parents and designers set up experimental play areas that were taken from Lady Allen of Hurtwood's book, Planning for Play, and visits to London and Denmark's adventure playgrounds. Originally set up in the empty lots and abandoned spaces, these now permanent parks receive very little vandalism and are ecologically sustainable. The idea behind these parks is that they're built out of sustainable material by the local people, by the community. It's not just about a playground, it's also involves gardening, so they grow their own food, and this is an example of rice and being grown in this particular playground. And there you have the community actually, they also have kitchens in this playground, so the children are involved with growing the rice sustainably, then cooking it. There's the kitchen. And there's even tool sheds so that the children they're encouraged to come and construct things, try new ways of doing things. So it's very much about sustainability, and it's also teaching the children, of course, the local children, about these issues. This is in Mexico. A group of community members gathered to collect, sort and prepare disused plastic bottles found all over the township. A poster called Learning Poster 3 collected material dwelling containing all the information, background knowledge about the economy and technical issues, and a diagram of how to build a low-cost construction was put up in different areas of Monterey City. Collecting system utilised the resources and economic practices of the area in which it was established in the outskirts of Monterey in Mexico. So basically they start by collecting all these bottles and then build structures out of the bottles. In fact, I'm building a house out of wine bottles at the moment. This is a performance that has occurred in Lima in Brazil, and it's by the artist Francis Alice. And it's basically an allegorical piece alluding to collective action. 500 people were brought together to move the sandhill, a poetic and futile task. If the work makes a claim, it is simply that the imagination can mobilise. Unlike many participatory works, the piece does not ask to be judged as a social action. Who the performers are, the specific context and duration of the work are less important than the knowledge that it happened. The work exists as a video and a postcard. So that's all the people trying to move the sandhill. In his book, The Wisdom of the Elders, the scientist David Suzuki stated, "Eminent scientists are suggesting that science alone is not enough to solve the planetary environmental crisis, and that we must create for ourselves a sense of place within the biosphere that is steeped in humility and reverence for all life. How we preserve and contemplate the land affects how we live in the land. If we see the land as separate from ourselves, we are less likely to honour and respect it. We have come to realise that a shift in consciousness is vital if we are to re-establish a relationship with the land based on mutual respect rather than the manipulative and exploitative attitude evident in many of our current behavioural paradigms. Questions that arose from the Re-Cognising the Land Symposium included: how is the desert portrayed in the Australian culture, and how does this differ from European concepts of desert? How is this land described in Indigenous culture? Can we learn to live in a waterless land? Can we love it, respect it, and nurture it? Can we allow this land to be itself rather than what we want it to be? Can we recognise it? Iliri aims to foster interdisciplinary research that has the potential to answer these questions and many more. We invite artists to present proposals that question the present paradigms that exist and that initiate innovative projects with practical applications for the challenge of living in an increasingly dry environment. We are open to all disciplines and welcome ideas, no matter how playful or bizarre they may seem. History has shown many examples of ideas considered absurd that have now become integral to our lives. I'm presently working on an idea that stems from the frustration of witnessing dry rivers turn into a flood of water on the rare occasion that it rains at Fowlers Gap, but then watching every precious drop of water disappear. The idea involves constructing the walls for a potential studio residency out of water tanks, whereby the walls are filled with water, creating the desirable thermal mass and capturing water for future use. And we actually have in the audience 4 wonderful young engineers who are working on this project. For other projects, watch this space. That's it.